Okay, so this week I thought I'd do something a bit different and record my thoughts and subject knowledge development for the graphic design verbally. So, let's go for it. Okay, so last week we were given a task that looked at using typography forms to create 9 sketches. So that's what we did last week. But this week we've been given a task which is kind of in a similar vein. The focus of this week's brief is letter form again, but mainly focusing on predominantly counter form. Now, before the lecture, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know anything about, obviously, counter form. Obviously, I kind of guessed what it was, as it's a pretty straightforward concept, which is essentially, counter form is the space that you find within a letter. So, for example, the big, in an O, the middle of the O is obviously white space, or transparent, for example. So that is counterform, and essentially it is also all the other space that is there. You can't have form without counterform, like you can't have sound without silence, that kind of thing. So that was our task. We had to create 9 sketches, but we're looking at the counterform as opposed to the form of the letter themselves. Now, obviously, after last week, we did 9 sketches. Obviously, I hadn't done sketches for a while, as I say in the blog. Obviously, I worked with advertisement and just with the software predominantly. So, looking at the counterform, obviously, is something that was, again, different, but I felt a lot more confident this week. Obviously, I'd done the 9 sketches, which took a lot of time, and I think this week, because of obviously I had a look at some theorists and some practitioners of graphic design and typography, I think just gave me a better idea of how to be more creative with letters. I think last week I was a bit safe in making things just, I was very, very much experimenting. But this week I had the knowledge from last week, and also what I was bringing to it this week, which was really, really interesting. It was nice to see how I developed. Also, this week we have had our first software session, which looked at Illustrator, a program that I'm not familiar with. I've used Photoshop, as a lot of people have. But we used Illustrator this week, and we were looking at how we take the sketches we had drawn and put them onto Illustrator. Now, it was a bit tricky. We had to use the pen tool, which involves you have to use anchors to curve all the lines and things like that. So that for me was really, really interesting, and I enjoyed that a lot. And it also impacted how I used how I created my sketches this week, because I had to think about, okay, well, I'm doing this, but how tricky is that going to be to put onto the computer? So that was obviously another thing I was taking into consideration as well. So this week, counterform, I actually quite enjoyed that. It was really interesting thinking, how am I using the space that isn't a letter, but using the letter as well? I was creating shapes from the space in between. So this week I'm going to have a look a bit more at the. I had a bit more of a look at some more practitioners, some more things I found a bit interesting. Also, some tutorials on Illustrator, as I really enjoyed the software session. Okay, so that was for this week, and I think recording it verbally is just something different. Okay, so that's it for this week. Okay.